I define high sensitivity as a preference to process information more deeply, and that includes like startling easily and being more affected by caffeine, but mostly it's that we take in stimuli and somehow it gets used in a different way, a more thorough way than for a non-sensitive person. So we started out with a questionnaire measure of sensitivity, but of course everybody wants to know if this thing is real. So we have gradually been undertaking physiological studies, and mostly we've been interested in how the brain works in sensitive people and non-sensitive people. So we've been using what is called functional magnetic resonance imaging. So it's like an MRI, but you have people doing something inside that tube, and they can't do much, but you can have them look at something and say, yes, I see it, or no, I don't. So one of the most interesting results we have with highly sensitive people during an fMRI compared to non-sensitive people is, of course, that their perceptual areas of the brain, attentional areas, are lighting up more than non-sensitive people when they're given a task that involves perception, especially of very subtle differences. One of the findings that I find most important is that when we compared sensitive people and non-sensitive people on things like neuroticism, depression, anxiety, shyness, we found, yes, sensitive people were a bit more that way. But then as soon as we separated out those with a good and bad childhood, we found that all of the, quote, neuroticism was being contributed by the people who had had difficult childhoods. So a sensitive person with a difficult childhood and probably other stressful events would have the same effect. But with a difficult childhood, they are more prone to anxiety, depression, and shyness, but than a non-sensitive person with the same level of difficulty in their life. But if you look at a sensitive person with a good supportive childhood and just pretty much of a regular child, it doesn't have to be outstanding, and compare them to a non-sensitive person, they're actually less anxious and depressed, more socially competent than the non-sensitive person with a good upbringing. Sensitive people, of course, are different in relationships because they're different in everything they do. And when it comes to meeting people or committing themselves after they met someone in a friendship or romantic relationship, I don't think they always make the best first impression. So they don't want to be in something like speed dating where they just won't necessarily come off well. It's better if they meet in some place where they gradually get to know other people, like being in the same course or even in the same workplace, something like that. Then sensitive people, as far as committing to someone, are often slow to commit. We don't like to make decisions. We don't like to make decisions rapidly. We make good decisions, but we find it a struggle. And sensitive people will take very seriously a commitment. And of course, I always have to remind them that doing nothing is a decision in itself. So you do have to decide eventually. And sensitive people will also often focus on the other person's flaws or drawbacks because they're so worried about how that's going to be. But these are the problems that could arise, the risks involved in the relationship. But of course, we have to focus on the positive too. The problem, of course, if you're highly sensitive and you're taking in all these subtleties, is what happens when there's too much coming in. And I like the analogy when I was little, my father took me to an orange packing factory. And the way they sort oranges into small, medium, and large is they have slots, and they have a conveyor belt that kind of shakes. And the oranges fall into the slots that they'll fit into. Large, medium, and small. Well, I liken sensitive people to having 15 slots. And that works fine if you don't have too many oranges coming down. But when there's a lot of oranges coming down the chute, they just get all jammed up because they can't find their slot. And sensitive people, when we have too much coming at us, we get tireder. We get over-aroused and overstimulated. And that has a lot of effects. One effect of being easily overstimulated or over-aroused is that we don't perform as well under those circumstances. So a person can rehearse alone, for instance, for a recital, and then they go on stage, and they're so overstimulated by the lights in the crowd that they don't do as well. So let's talk about how sensitive people have to live their lives a little differently than other people. And I think the big thing is realizing that they can be overstimulated, means more downtime, more rest. And I say 8 hours in bed, whether you're asleep or not, and at least 2 hours during the day in which your mind is kind of drifting. It could be in meditation, it could be on a walk, it could be while you're sweeping the floor, but it just should be that your mind is free to drift. I also think that we do well with a day off that is completely like a full Sabbath with nothing but time free to sleep and relax. And I like to see them get a week off about 4 times a year rather than one big vacation, because we need time to recuperate. It's very important. Perhaps the most important thing for me about high sensitivity is that sensitive people appreciate themselves and are appreciated by others. But I'm particularly concerned about children, because so many sensitive adults will tell me that that their parents didn't understand them and they were bullied and they had a really hard time. And it's just like taking away something so valuable from the world, because of this research that shows that in a good environment, these kids have more to offer. So child rearing, temperament counseling, information that gets out to people about how to raise these children, that seems very important to me. For adults, finding out that you're highly sensitive often is just a complete turnaround in terms of reframing your life, understanding why you made certain decisions, and appreciating yourself and not comparing yourself so much to non-sensitive people.